what is really the I will be able to share with you guys, but I finally came into a point to choose one of the topics of occupational safety and health, particularly uh, one of the highly critical or hazardous operations in any industries. Could it be construction industries or general industries such as manufacturing industries like that? So it's gonna be definitely confined space entry. Okay. So this confined space entry is OSHA Standard 29 CFR 1910.146. So we will just base our discussion based on the occupational safety, health and administration. Okay, standard. Again, 29 CFR 1910.146. Okay, guys, CFR means Code of Federal Regulation. Okay, but before going further, I may discuss first a little bit the direct definition of a confined space. So, a confined space is defined as a partially enclosed or enclosed space for human occupancy or not designated for a safe place of work under normal circumstances or under normal conditions. You will be just be able to work there in different confined spaces if during maintenance, shutdown, repair, like that. Okay? So actually there are three criteria for that also. When we will classify and categorize as a permit required confined spaces. Okay, so this confined space entry jobs is one of the most uh, important scope of works because so many work-related injuries and accidents happening in working inside the confined spaces. So through that, we will establish a confined space entry procedure, and part of it is our confined space entry permit, okay, along with the training of the people so that they have basic knowledge and clear understanding how to work safely and efficiently in dealing with confined spaces job, especially they're going to do work inside the confined space. So the hazards are so high. So that is a risky operation. Okay, like that. So in this confined space entry scope of works, we need to know the basic safety procedure, okay, the safety requirements prior to enter in the confined space, okay, or any confined spaces, okay, or permit required confined spaces, because there are also non-permit confined spaces. It depends on our criteria if they will fall on the three criteria. The first criteria of a confined space is that it is a large space adequate enough that is so configured bodily enter for a worker to perform work inside a confined space. Bodily enter, meaning to say your body is enough to go inside the confined space. Okay. Number two criterion, that was the first criterion. The second criterion or second parameter, by the way, is it is not designated for a safe place of work. Okay. Or stated differently, it is not designed for human occupancy. Okay. Like that, under normal condition. Okay. Number three is it is a space that is having restricted or limited entry or exit, something like that. So there will be restrictions of the point of entry and exit, like that. Okay, that was the those were the criteria not criteria, criteria only. Wrong grammar. Criteria of a confined space. Okay, like that. After knowing the safety requirements and safety procedure prior to work in a confined space, we need also to know the different potential hazards and associated risks for going into the confined space, or even during working in a confined space and after working also in a confined space. Okay, and of course, if we have our potential hazards, existing hazards identified, then we will be able to have our safety measures and safety controls for that, our hazards and risk control, of course. Okay, so those safety control measures and safety precautions are mentioned in the permit to work document, like that. Okay, number three is that we need to classify and identify what are those permit required confined spaces, okay, and also the non-permit required confined spaces. Okay, number four, we need to understand completely, or we need to fully understand how to work safely and efficiently in working confined space job or scope of works. Number five, we need to know our roles, duties, and responsibilities as a personnel if we are involved in that particular scope of work, which is a confined space entry of works. So if you will review the OSHA 29 CFR 19.146, there explain clearly the general requirements, okay, the categorization, the classification of what are those permit required confined spaces and what are not, the training of the personnel prior to enter the confined space also. Okay, like that. So that's very important. Now we go now to the, of course, we have the basic safety procedure. Like the basic safety procedure for confined space entry are very basic, not complicated. So the first thing to do is the personnel and all people involved working in a confined space entry are all trained. So meaning to say, you will not be able to do the job if you are not trained with confined space entry task, because as I said earlier, this is one of the most highly hazardous and risky operations all over the world. Okay, aside from working at height, excavation, lifting operation, something like that. Okay. Number two, training first. Number two, we need to obtain a confined space entry permit to the operating authority, okay, for the issuing authority or issuing party. Of course, if you are a member, one of the members of the confined space entry job, okay, you are now belongs to the performing party. So you will obtain a permit to work, confined space permit to work specifically. Okay. Number three, as a performing party, we need to conduct joint safety inspection along with the issuing party or permit to work issuers. Okay? Automatically, the performing party are the permit to work receivers and permit to work holders. Both of you will have will have to conduct joint safety inspection to understand fully and to check and inspect the workplace if free from any potential hazards and any associated risks involved prior to work in a confined space entry. Now, if the confined space are now free from any potential hazards and associated risks prior to entry the confined space, then the issuer, the work permit issuer, will approve and sign the permit to work document. And also, of course, the performing party will also sign the work permit document. Okay, so both these authorities, the work permit holders and the work permit issuers, are also trained or certified certified issuers of the permit to work document also before signing, of course. Okay, that is our number 2, permit to work. Okay, now number 3, after it has been approved. So number 3, there is safety precaution. There are safety precautions or safety measures listed in the work permit. Then the performing party will try to apply or implement those safety precautions. There are a lot, one by one. Okay, so honestly, seriously, with dedication, okay, something like that. Because if there is any potential accidents that will be happening, you will be also questioned because you are trying to check all the safety precaution and then you did not follow honestly. So you will be questioned during the incident investigation. Okay, if there are incidents and accidents that will be happening related to confined space entry work, something like that. So you should be careful. Okay. Number 4, you need to conduct now the confined space entry work. Of course, before that, we need to conduct the gas testing. Okay, before entry. This is number 4. Gas testing to check the level of the oxygen if it is not more than 23.5% and if it is not less than 19.5%. If it is less than 19.5%, that is oxygen deficient environment inside the confined space. If it is above 23.5%, then it is oxygen enriched. So both of them, the upper side and the lower side, are dangerous, okay, and risky, okay. So if the AGT, the authorized gas tester, meaning they are the competent person to conduct gas tests in that confined space, if they found out that the results or the readings, okay, are not good or abnormal, then it should be corrected first. Then nobody is allowed to enter in the confined space, something like that. Okay, we need to correct and intervene and again provide safety control for that. Okay, there are a lot of safety controls to be done. We will just follow the hierarchy safety control measures or the rest controls hierarchy, right? Which is the elimination, substitution, engineering control, administrative control, PPE, something like that. Okay, so no need to discuss that one by one because I've already discussed it a while ago. Okay, about safety hierarchy of controls or rest control. So you'll be able to use that also. Okay, to correct and intervene the situation if the level of oxygen is abnormal. Okay, normally the exact, not really the exact, the desired level of oxygen must be 20.9, 20.8, something like that. It's not less than 19.5, it's not above 23.5. Okay? Like that. Because if it is above 23.5 also, there's a chance of too much oxygen during combustion process, then it could lead also to fire and explosion hazard. Okay, the risk will be the damaging of the equipment during burning and explosion, and eventually can kill a person inside the confined space if above 23.5% because the oxygen is so high. Remember the combustion reaction. Okay, if you have organic compound or hydrocarbon plus the oxygen, which is very high, okay, there will be a process known as a combustion, exothermic reaction. There will be a release of heat, and eventually, okay, if you're using chemicals that have a higher flash points, it will ignite spontaneously. It produces a flash of fire, okay, in the presence of the ignition source. If there's an ignition source and there's a high level of oxygen enriched environment, then problem, there will be a fire and explosion inside the confined space. That's why gas testing is very important. Okay, in oxygen deficient atmosphere also, it should be corrected because the people will go inside, there will be less oxygen. Now, there's a risk of asphyxiation or what we call as less breathing inside the confined space, meaning you cannot breathe properly, okay, because the oxygen is very less. Okay, that's why we need to provide ventilation, fans like this, or you will be able to use airline respirator, something like that, or supplied air breathing apparatus just to provide oxygen. Is in a confined space. You will be able to wear also the self-contained breathing apparatus in order to have, survival for the oxygen and air content inside the confined space. Okay, but normally these are special requirement only for confined spaces related to gas operation, something like that, or any type of power plants like this. Okay, gas plant. But normally other industries, other general industries don't require that special respiratory equipment, or what we call as RPE. Okay, respiratory protective equipment, like that. So this is our number 4, gas testing, like that. Okay, after the gas testing we have the number 5. We're talking about the procedure, huh? Number 5, we need to have proper lighting, okay, inside the confined space, okay, so that our job will be clearly visible and we can clearly see what we are going to do inside the confined space. It's a hazard, of course. If it is very dark, then we cannot perform our job clearly, and it can cause also incident and accident inside. Okay, so it must be very, very well lighted, okay, to clearly see your job properly, something like that. Okay, and then you need to also proper access in going inside to the confined space and going outside to the confined space, especially safe ladder to be used. If it is having a built-in access, then it's very, very good. Okay, that would be more good. But in usual cases, since that is not designed for human occupancy, some of the hole opening have no ladder built in for that particular confined spaces, then you have to use the straight ladders. Okay, like that. Avoid using plastic ladder and avoid using type A ladder also. Okay, like that. So, and the ladder to be used must be properly inspected prior to use. Okay, if defective and damaged, then don't use that ladder. Assure proper access in going and out to the confined space. Okay, after the lighting, the proper access, we need to have, as I mentioned earlier, the mechanical ventilation to provide oxygen. Okay, like that, any kind of blowers, exhaust fans, something like that. Okay, to remove or decontaminate the different fumes or release of any unexpected harmful gases inside the confined space. Okay, like that. That's what we need to conduct as this, right? Okay, that's it. We have now the lighting, the proper access. And now number 5, okay, we need also to establish confined space rescue lines and rescue equipment. Okay, so what are those? It could be a two-way mobile radio communication, or a mobile phone, or any kind of two-way radio communication to communicate the hazards and dangers inside and outside the confined space. So the confined space supervisor, the entrant, and the standby man, and the hall watcher or the attendant will have this two-way mobile communication for proper communication inside the confined space and outside also. Okay, during emergency situation. Okay, like that. And our rescue equipment also so many. For example, if we have, it depends on the kinds of confined space we have. If we have the manhole or the pits like that, utility vault, something like that in the ground. Okay, so we need to have the tripod, okay, like that, and put full body harness and attach to it a wire rope pulley to the worker that will go inside the ground or the manhole. Okay, but it is an open topped confined spaces, then we need to have other sources of rescue equipment. Could it be a rescue rope, or it could be equipment also like man leaf, if it is passable, if there's no obstruction in going there. Okay, manhole, like no, man lift, sorry. Okay, for open top spaces, something like that. We will prepare that also, okay? And also for first aid treatment, okay? Stretcher, if there is any casualties, okay, and patients during emergency situation that will be happening inside the confined space, something like that, okay? And medical personnel also are ready for they are considered also as one of the rescuing team, something like that. The first aiders like this, the medical personnel like that, they have that structure, something like that. And they are competent enough also to do the CPR, okay? CPR, cardiovascular pulmonary resuscitation, something like that, okay? And the first aid treatment, okay? The first aid treatment will be the immediate care given to a patient or a casualty who have suddenly taken ill or who have suffered ill health, disease, or sickness in the time or in an event of any emergency situation inside a confined space. Meaning to say, quick first aid treatment, uh, attention, medical attention given to those patients or a person, something like this. Okay, that's the purpose of first aid treatment also. So the medical personnel are trained for that. Okay, that's part of the rescue personnel rescue equipment or confined space rescue equipment and medical team or emergency team, right? That's five. Number five. That's our procedure. Okay, like that. No need to discuss about. No, we still have to discuss about, let's say, decontaminating or purging the confined space. If it is only applicable in the gas plant, right? It depends on the nature of the company you are worked with. Okay, if it is a gas plant, then there's a decontamination prior to entry of the people, meaning purging of an inert gas before going to the confined space, and they'll be able to flush it with water also to clearly decontaminate presence of harmful substances, okay, or any fumes like that, or any presence of flammable chemicals that remained inside the process vessels, in the storage tanks, like that. It would be another case if the industry is a gas plant, something like that. There will be a purging requirement also. Usually they will be using argon, because argon is inert gas, meaning to say non-reactive gas. So if it is a non-reactive gas, it will not consume the oxygen level inside the confined space. If you will introduce a purging chemical that is not inert, then it will react to the oxygen. Then the oxygen consumption will be also very, very bad. Then the people will suffer also with asphyxiation. Asphyxiation meaning the loss of oxygen, okay, through the internal body system of a person. If the oxygen will be consumed and will be lost, then you cannot breathe properly, okay? And suddenly you will collapse into the confined space, okay? That's why we need to provide oxygen circulation inside the confined space, okay? Like that. Those are our procedures. Okay, permit is only part of the procedure. Okay, so regarding number one, the training of the personnel, specifically, we have the hall attendant or the hall watcher, okay, or the standby man, the entrance. The entrance are the one who will go inside and going out to the confined space. All of them are trained, as I mentioned earlier, right? But after the gas testing, also we will provide them the sign in and sign out log sheet in order for them to monitor, okay, during emergency situation. So they will not exceed beyond 2 hours in working, okay, and there will be a limit of people going into the confined space, a minimum of 2 or 3, something like that. It is not allowed to have more people inside the confined space. It's limited, okay, and all of them are competent enough to do the task also, okay, and they are all trained regarding the basic knowledge of confined space entry, something like that, okay. So sign in and sign out log sheet. Okay, normally the AGT, the authorized gas tester, is not only testing the oxygen level, as what I mentioned earlier, the enrichment and the deficient. The AGT, authorized gas tester, meaning usually or specifically the OSH professional, it could be a safety technician that is trained how to conduct gas testing, okay, and having that gas test device that is properly also inspected and properly calibrated for its purpose to determine a reliable and a precise result during the gas testing. Not only limited to safety technician, it could be a safety officer, it could be a safety engineer, but seldom and rarely for a safety manager because the safety manager will just manage the people, okay? But most of the times it is safety officer will do the gas testing device because also safety engineer is more also on documentation. But if it is an organization where there is a less manpower of safety personnel, then the safety engineer also can conduct the authorized gas testing, provided he has an enough knowledge how to conduct in actual the gas testing inside a confined space. Okay, like that. So confined space gas testing have also procedure, okay, prior to entry, how to apply the gas testing prior to entry, okay. Number two, every 2 hours of entry, okay, like that, meaning within the course of job inside the confined space. Number three, when the conditions changes inside the confined spaces, we need also to reconduct gas testing, and also the during the completion of the task. Okay, so 4 times. Again, prior to entry, every 2 hours. Number three, if the conditions present inside the confined are changing, and then we also have the reconduct of the gas testing after the completion of the task. But it depends on the situation in the actual. If your confined space are noted to have a very good results, then no need to conduct continuously by common sense, okay, something like that. Because the readings will justify how safe the confined space really is, something like that, okay, like that. So not only oxygen, but we have to have carbon monoxide. Okay, the carbon monoxide must not be less than 35 parts per million and should not exceed 50 parts per million. Remember, carbon monoxide is a deadly gas and a killer gas. It can kill a person very quickly, something like that, okay? So that is a toxic gas, okay? Like that. And we have also H2S, harmful and the killer H2S also, okay? The hydrogen sulfide, the standard limit or the OEL, occupational exposure limit, or the TLV, the threshold limit value for that is 0 to 10 ppm, okay? Like that. It depends on the situation. If it is a gas plant, then you can be able to within the range of that. But it is better that you have a zero level or parts per million of H2S. Okay? So it's very clear. Zero is the best. Because if there is a reading in between the 0 and 10 ppm, then it would be a problem. If there will be an ignition sources used like that, and there's a flammable and combustible materials also, like I said, because of the problem also because, for example, if the people are very, very lazy to implement the good housekeeping implementation and good storage of the flammable and combustible materials implementation, then it will become a problem also if you have too much reading in H2S also. Okay, like that. Okay, so H2S, carbon monoxide, oxygen level, and also the VOC, the volatile organic compounds. The volatile organic compounds are a lot. These are chemical solvents, okay, that having a lower flash points that will ignite spontaneously in air, something like that, okay, and the vapor produced are very, very harmful to the respiratory lungs, like that, to our breathing, so inhalation. Okay? As we can remember also, as we can recall, the 3 points of entry for the chemical hazards exposure will be through inhalation, absorption through the skin, inhalation through the nose, like that, and then for the contact physically, like that. Okay, through ingestion also, contamination during eating. Okay, you did not wash your hands, then you can ingest. Okay, you can take that in your system, internal digestive system, through inhalation, absorption, and ingestion or direct contact. So that's are the point of contacts during chemical hazards. Okay, but we also have chemical hazards. Okay, releases fumes, vapors, smoke, blah blah blah, so on. So these are the chemical hazards. Okay, like that, and we have to prevent. Also, the level of the VOC must be zero. Okay, of course, because it is expected that will never bring flammable substances or any chemical solvents within the confined space unless it is necessary to do so. Okay, but normally, under normal circumstances or normal situations, you don't have to bring flammable chemicals, of course. Okay, it depends the type of job they will be able to do. But normally, hot work operations doesn't involve chemicals. Really, if this is the case, then it will add fire and explosion risk. Okay, that's why we need to have proper risk assessment before doing job inside the confined space. Okay, so the confined space risk assessment or the job hazards analysis is complementary with the confined space procedure. Okay, it is expected that the employer must already have now the risk assessment of confined space entry on the confined space procedure, something like that. Okay, now we need to be clear and we need to emphasize also what are those potential hazards and associated risks in working inside the confined space, because we need to establish an effective measures and effective safety precautions. We need to identify the existing and the potential hazards. So what are those? Okay, if you are an OSH professionals, these are very common already, but we need to share information to all of you guys that the first hazard, oh my gosh, so we need to identify the potential and existing hazards and its associated risk prior to work inside the confined space. Okay? So what are those? Chemical hazards. Okay, chemical hazards, those are referring to the vapor, the gases, the smoke, the fumes, the mists, finely suspended liquid droplets, something like that in the atmosphere. Okay? And the dusts and other airborne contaminants or pollutants, something like that. That's under chemical hazards. Okay? Very clear. Airborne contaminants or airborne particulates are just the same. Okay? Like that. So those are chemical hazards. And we need to control or minimize those hazards because we cannot also totally eliminate those hazards. It will really exist. Okay? All we have to do, we'll try to control that in a minimal value or in an alarm state, in as low as reasonably practicable state. So we can do that by measuring. Okay, measuring, meaning to say actual measuring by using a device such as the gas test device, something like this. Okay, not only that, any monitoring device that will be used to just to control and minimize the level of those chemical hazards that will be in the confined space, something like that, chemical hazards. Okay, number two, we have, oh my gosh, the physical hazards. The physical hazards are talking mainly to the physical properties of any substance or physical properties or environmental factors affecting the work status or the work conditions inside the confined space. So what are those physical status or physical properties? For example, humidity, percentage relative humidity, okay? The heat, the HEAT, okay? The heat under extreme cold or it could be extreme hot. Okay, if it is extreme hot, then high temperature. If it is extreme cold, then it's lower temperature. Okay, something like that. So temperature extremes. Okay, like that. Heat, cold, something like that. Okay, the noise, that's also physical hazard. The vibration, okay, something like that. Okay, so the vibration normally causing ergonomic hazards such as the musculoskeletal disorders or diseases of the tendons, cartilage, spinal discs, the joints of your bones, something like that. So normally you will experience low back pain, okay, stiffness, sprain and pain and numbness to your fingers like that, or you could be able to suffer what do you call that one, apathy. Apathy. Sorry for the term apathy. New disease, okay, just like a needle penetrating in your palm. Some medical neuropathy. I forgot the term. That's medical term. It's difficult. I'm not a medical personnel. Okay, I forgot the term. It's just like a needle, penetrating to your palm, something like that. So there will be a numbness like this of your muscles of your finger, and there will be a loss of sensation of the muscles of your finger, and you'll be suffering also. Okay, so that will be normally the hazards of under vibration, usually to those personnel that continuously using hand tools, vibrating equipment. Okay, vibrating hand tools and vibrating equipment. Okay, like this, hand drills, drilling machine, something like that. So many examples for that. Okay, so it could produce a hand-arm vibration syndrome. Okay, the HAVS, technical term for that disease. So that is usually caused by vibrating tools also, or vibration, because we are talking about vibration under physical hazards, and we touch a little bit of ergonomic hazards, right? But of course, ergonomic hazard is part of the hazards of the confined space. But later, for the physical hazard, aside from the noise, the vibration, what else? A lot. It could be also pressure inside the confined space. Okay, the force inside the confined space. Okay, and then area also, the configuration of the confined space, right? So if we can remember technically in our physics or in our chemistry, pressure is equal to force over area. So if there is a very, very small area in your confined space, then you will be suffering pressure. Okay? Like that. Too much pressure. If lower surface area. Something like that. Okay? So if the pressure will be suffering because too much pressure, then there will also be a high force needed. So because pressure and force are directly proportional to each other, in the basic formula of pressure is equal to force over area. Okay, something like that. So it's also part of the physical hazards, the pressure, the force, the area, the dimensions of the confined space, like that. Okay, that's physical hazards also. Okay, very clear? Like that. Again, heat, temperature, could it be lower, higher, vibration, noise, humidity, okay, pressure, force, area, like that. That is physical hazards, okay? Like that. Number 3 hazard, we have, that's the most important hazard, we have the atmospheric hazards. Atmospheric hazards could be based on flammable and explosive atmospheres. When we speak about flammable atmospheres, those are harmful gases or toxic gases, hazardous gases, as what I mentioned earlier. Those are carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, or sometimes it could be nitrous oxides, sometimes a laughing gas known as nitrogen dioxide. That is a laughing gas. That's also a very deadly gas, also something like that. Okay, and a lot of harmful gases in the atmosphere. So that is toxic gases, harmful gases, and for the flammable gases also. And we have also explosive atmospheres, gases like that. For example, what are those explosive? Uh, for example, very, very explosive also is the what we call this one, carbon monoxide. That's also explosive, right? What else? If you will use also what you call alcohol, explosive, okay? Thinner, explosive. Ketone, explosive. Ketone, ketone. Example is the acetone. It's a ketone family, okay? Like that. Or any hydrocarbon that composed of carbon and hydrogen, those are really flammable substances. Technically, okay? Basic knowledge, those are really flammable. Most of it, okay? If that those are hydrocarbons, because it's undergo the process called as combustion, okay? Like that. So, okay, good for that, okay? Because I remember also the another criterion to measure inside the confined space, which is the LEL. Sorry, I'm just human being that commits mistakes. That's why I told you before, I will never prepare in an organized fashion or in a systematic fashion of doing my vlogs or live streaming, because it seems to be perfect. I want to be on the spot, okay, like this. What retained in my brain, I will be able to discuss to anybody, to share the information. I don't want to prepare, okay, like that. I don't want to be highly organized. I just want to discuss what I've learned and what I have gained knowledge for that, okay? So I remember LEL also, sorry, lower explosive limits is under explosion. We can determine any substances or any chemicals if it is explosive or not due to its LEL, lower explosive limit, okay? It is the lowest temperature of a particular combustible gas or vapor in air, okay? Necessary to support combustion. See? Combustion is present in the definition. So, if there is a combustion, meaning to say there will be an added oxygen through organic compound or hydrocarbon. Okay? So, that's very clear. So, those are, majority are explosive or have an explosion rating. So, how can we determine the explosion rating? Is to measure the LEL. That's why you don't have to use chemicals inside the confined space, because there's an explosion hazards, okay, for that. So these are examples of explosive atmosphere and their atmosphere hazards, okay, atmospheric hazards, okay, explosive atmosphere by using chemicals that have very low LEL and low flash points, okay. LEL is, sorry, see, I remember. This flash point is basing on lowest temperature. Okay, lowest temperature of a combustible gas or vapor in air that supports or necessary to have a combustion. Something like that, okay? Like that. And this flash point are the lowest concentration, not the temperature, sorry, okay? Because we can say, because of this explosion, that's not really referring to temperature. Okay, I remember quickly based on the capability of my brain to think quickly. Oh my gosh. Okay, the flash point is the minimum concentration of a combustible gas or vapor in air that spontaneously ignites in the presence of an ignition source. Okay, that's a difference. Okay, like that. Oh my gosh. That's like okay, again. LEL back. LEL is the minimum concentration of a combustible gas or vapor in air, okay, that support or necessary to support combustion. So combustion is a process that involves oxygen gas added with a hydrocarbon or an organic compound to produce water and carbon dioxide. Now, if there's a combustion, so there will be a higher explosion rating. That's why it's called lower explosive limit. The more it is become lower, the more it is not, the more it is good. Okay, sorry. That if it is higher, above 10%, that is very dangerous already. That's why we have a limit of 0 to 10%. Okay? But normally, in a confined space entry safe for work, it should be less than 5% LEL. Okay? But the best, 0. Okay? Like that. There's there's a range that you have to be careful, or you have to be alert. Something like that. And then you have to control and to, correct the situation. Okay, if it's above 10% LEN. Okay, like that. And the flash point is the lowest temperature. Okay, temperature. Okay, lowest temperature of a combustible gas or vapor in air that will spontaneously ignite or produce or capable of producing a flash of fire in the presence of the ignition source. Okay, like that. Flash of fire, ignition, something like that. So that is flash point because it's flash, okay? Flash report, okay? So very quick at the lowest temperature that will ignite, then this is the flash point. So it will be determined through that, the flammability of the substances. But for the LEL, it will determine for the explosivity or the explosion rating that will be based on the minimum concentration. Okay? So that's very clear. Oh my gosh. So that's atmospheric hazards, chemical hazards, physical hazards. And now, we will go now to the safety hazards. The safety hazards are special, okay, hazards because you can easily see on actual by your naked eye. Okay? You can visualize that when you're going to the confined space. What are those? For example, the slip, trip, and fall hazards, like that. Okay, what else? The hazards of not providing an adequate work platform, the hazards that can you obtain for the improper access, like that. The hazards of entanglement or entrapment inside the confined spaces, like that. What else? Safety hazards. Could it be also an electrocution inside the confined space hazards if there are damage and defecting electrical cables or unsafe condition of the welding cables or any cables or any electrical installations inside the confined space, then, or the lighting cables damage or whatever, blah, 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 so on and so. So there will be an electrocution hazard or electrical shock. These are part also with the safety hazards. We knew that already, that these are examples of electrical hazards, right? But this is also under safety hazards. Okay? Because you can visualize that. The condition of your cable, okay, electrical cables, electrical installation. You can determine that well. So this part of safety hazards, though it is specifically an electrical hazard, but that is under also the safety hazards. Okay, number 5 hazards are those ergonomic hazards, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, I discussed that already. No need to discuss, right? But I have to add something. Okay. Ergonomic hazards are those hazards or disorders from your tendons, joints, cartilages, spinal discs, or any, in the bones like that, because of improper posture towards your job. Okay? Improper posture and repetitive motion without varying your actions, without varying the way you perform, the way you carry out the task is always like that, and you will develop a disease called musculoskeletal disorders under ergonomic hazards. Musculoskeletal meaning more of the bones and the muscles like that, the joints, the tendons, the cartilages, like more on the atomic structure of the body. Okay, like that. Those are ergonomic hazards because of your motion towards bending like that, towards reaching your tools, towards pushing, pulling, carrying, lifting, like that. So those are normally by manual handling, okay? Improper manual handling, poor manual handling techniques can lead to ergonomic hazards, something like that. Okay? Improper posture, improper positioning, repetitive motion, blah, 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 so on. So you have to vary. That's why you need to have to relax for a while, okay, to rest for a while, or you could be able to have a job rotation so that you can rest your body, okay, towards or performing your task, okay? So the best solution to avoid ergonomic hazards is to vary and to design your workstation ergonomically, okay? Ergonomically design your workstation, the way you perform your job towards the point of your hand tools, equipment, like that. So you need to establish safe distance away from your tools and equipments, and then you have to vary your positioning, okay, towards your job, okay, like that. So it's related also with physical hazards, right? But this is really an ergonomic hazard, a separate hazard, okay? Like that. So, number 6, fire and explosion, okay? Like that, okay? There are also environmental hazards, but usually the environmental hazards are outside factors, okay? But that can cause, a very disastrous events. That could be flooding, like that, earthquake, okay? Too much wind speed, tropical cyclones, okay, like that. What else? A lot. Natural disasters events that are uncontrolled. We cannot control that one, and all we have to do is to have a very effective emergency and evacuation procedure if that times happen. So those are environmental hazards. It can be also forecasted ahead of time through the news, TV, social media, like that. So most of the environmental hazards can be forecasted also early ahead of time, okay? Except for earthquake, I think so. But other than that, the typhoon, tropical cyclones, or the high wind speed, okay, can be forecasted ahead of time. Especially the temperature, okay, how cold, how hot, it can be forecasted, of course, okay, like that. So very easy to monitor, okay, like that, by using our 5 senses, okay, eyes, nose, sense of touch, and everything, blah blah blah, so and so. Okay, so there are 6, okay, potential hazards and existing hazards, and through that potential and existing hazards, we have the risks associated in it. Okay, so usually injury, work-related injuries, okay, or it could be occupational ill health diseases or sickness that would lead to permanent or temporary disability, something like that. Okay, so those really the risks. I don't have to mention specifically what are those risks because there are a lot. Okay, especially ill health diseases are a lot. Okay, how can we discuss that one by one? I'm not a medical professional. Okay, like that. But generally, work-related injuries and work-related occupational illnesses or ill health diseases, sickness, blah blah blah, so and so. Okay, like that. So I don't have to discuss, especially of course going back to the chemical hazards, a lot of diseases that will be produced, okay, or have an impact for the gas, for the smokes, for the fumes, for the gas, airborne contaminants, like there are a lot, okay, respiratory diseases, lung cancer, silicosis, asbestosis, pneumonia, bacterial meningitis, okay, there's a lot for that, okay. Not only that, there will be a kidney failure, okay, liver, liver inflammation, blah, 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 so and so. That are chronic diseases that will come after 10 years, after 5 years. And there's also acute diseases that will come very immediate during the completion of the task or whatever, within a day, okay? So that's very clear. So there's a lot. If there is a hazard, there is a complementary risk of it, and it will just remain a hazard if we will try to intervene those hazards by having an effective control measures. Okay, because the rest are focusing on the impact already. Okay, and the consequence. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. If our hazards are already corrected on the spot and we are intervening at an initial phase or initial stage, okay, very clear. So we need to ensure that we have a very effective control measures and safety precautions so that we can really uh, eliminate or reduce risks and impact to the human health. Okay? Because the focus of occupational safety and health are really to prevent injuries like that and any ill health diseases and sickness through work-related scope of works like this. Okay? Secondary only to protect the business operations like this for business purposes and for increasing and improving the morale of the employees, something like that, increasing the productivity, the efficiency of the employees like that, to prevent losses, something like that. It's only, but the main purpose really is to prevent injuries, that nobody will get hurt, but nobody will physically harm through that various scope of works. It's only like that always. The meaning to say, we predict the safety hazards and the health hazards, okay? Like that. Okay, the two category of the hazards, the safety hazards and the health hazards. But the classification of hazards are so many. I'm discussing a while ago. In a confined space, we have a maximum of 7 potential or existing hazards, okay? Like that. We need to reduce, dwindle, mitigate this hazard so that we can have the risk or impact to the people or for our human health, something like that. Okay, it's very clear already. We know already the hazards, the risks, and we know already our duties and roles and responsibilities. But I did not mention clearly the rules, right? Okay. Okay, going back to the rules and responsibilities. Okay, the job and responsibility of a confined space supervisor is to give adequate supervision and instruction, safe and proper instructions to those entrants and personnel that will be able to work inside the confined space. They are also the one who prepare the necessary materials, specific equipment and tools with good condition, tools and equipment prior to execute the job safely prior to work in a confined space. Okay? Like that. Preparation of the materials, resources, and anything, blah, 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 so on. So that's their job. Okay? Like that. And then the rules also of entrance is to communicate to the attendant and the hall watcher also what's going on inside the confined space, if there are any hazards and dangers, communicate well. Not only that, they are the one also try to communicate what are the missing materials that are needed inside or any resources needed inside so that they can fully do the job successfully and safely also. Okay? In terms of productivity, quality, something like that. Because productivity and quality and safety are always complementary with each other. Okay, if they're working safely, normally they're working with quality, and productivity also increases out of that. Okay, and then if the productivity increases, it is understood also that the personnel working inside the confined space are having a high efficiency toward their work because they also work with quality. Okay, so the more you work with quality, you have a high efficiency. Okay, and each of them needs to back up with safety. Okay, because safety and quality and productivity is interrelated with each other. Okay, like that. So that's the principle of ISO 45001 2018. Oh my gosh. And also ISO 9000, like that, blah blah blah. So and so ISO 18001 to 2007, like this. Okay, it's very clear already how to work safely in a confined space. Okay, the entrant and the hall watcher is just only very near in the opening of the hole. Okay, they are the one who try to prevent unauthorized entry of other personnel to go inside the confined space, and they will be the one to communicate any hazards that will exist inside the confined space or outside the confined space, and there will be the one to relay and communicate the persons inside the confined space if there are emergency situations that will be happening, and there will also be the one who communicate if there are accidents and incidents happening inside the confined space, and they will report to the first aiders and the medical personnel if there are injuries, okay, or to the safety department automatically if there are no injuries. The difference is if there are injuries, you have to report directly to the nurse. If there are no injuries, only damage to properties, okay, then report immediately to the safety department. Why? Because if you try to report first to the safety department, the injury, the pain, the suffering will intensify, okay, and it will become delay. It will become more intensifying. It will, okay, and you will delay it. Okay, if you will delay the reporting to the medical personnel, then the more your pain, your wound, the cuts, the abrasions, the lacerations, or any type of injuries, the more it will become big. That's why you need to report first the first aider and the nurse, because their purpose is to conduct first aid treatment. Okay, the immediate or the quick medical attention or care given to a patient or casualty who have suddenly taken ill or who have suffered from any health diseases, sickness, wounds, injuries like that. Okay? So very clear in the definition of the first aid treatment. So like that. So that's why we are displaying that also the emergency communication protocol within the strategic places within the plant sites or any company sites, something like that, in every building, whatever, okay, so that we can communicate directly to the medical personnel or the first aiders, the certified and competent first aiders who will do the basic first aid treatment, something like that, okay? And then they will be the one to adjust, no, not adjust, to arrange things, resources in going to outside hospital if the wounds or any diseases or any injuries are becoming big already because it cannot be controlled. Okay, because they cannot prescribe medicines also because they are not doctors, they are not physicians, and they cannot also operate, okay, surgically. They cannot do surgical operation because aside from the equipment there's no equipment to that. They are not the one responsible for that because they are not a surgeon or a physician to do that. Okay, there's a limitation. Okay, adjust and arranged for the resources in going to the outside hospital if the injuries will be coming big and beyond their control, something like that, and the safety department will do the reporting. Okay, this I'm talking, this is a part of the emergency response team during if there are accidents and incidents, especially if there are injuries inside the confined space, if there are any patients and casualties also. Okay, the response time will be very quick. It runs to, I think, based on the OSHA standard, it will reach only to 4 minutes to 10 minutes quickly rescuing the casualties and patients inside the confined space. If there are disastrous events and emergencies that will be happening inside the confined space, something like that, okay? There's a duration or response time. So meaning to say this, it could be done quickly, the rescue operation, something like that, with backup rescue equipment and with backup proper rescue emergency communication. Okay? So because there are organizations also that doesn't have an internal emergency response team. Okay, they rely only for the external and outside emergency response team. So it can be done quickly and the response time must be quickly enough to solve the situation that are beyond our control, something like that. Okay? So that's talking about also with confined space procedure. Okay? And if you my gosh, thank you so much for listening for this Confined Space Entry vlog of mine. Actually, this is a live streaming. Okay, thank you so much. If you think you like this video, you can comment, you can share to anybody else. If you gain a little bit of information out of my discussion, click the notification bell for some newest updates. I am a singer, eternal voice, occupational safety, health, and engineer, and a registered chemical engineer. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye and God bless. Sorry, I'm very fast in my discussion. Okay, because I don't have the slides to present to discuss it well. Okay, this is only spontaneous and verbatim. O verbatim talaga. Okay. Define verbatim. Define spontaneous. Okay, oh my gosh. So this is not an English vlogging. No need to define those terminologies. Okay, like that. Okay, I'm enjoying vlogging. I'm enjoying live streaming. My gosh, thank you so much for listening. Okay, for this confined space entry discussion. Okay, if you think you did not terminologies, and you can search and go over to OSHA site, Occupational Safety, Health and Administration, because there are a lot of safety legislations, rules and regulations and standards there. If that is general industry, meaning manufacturing industry, okay, like that. It could be food products, like that. It could be beverages industries, wine industries, like that. Power plant, okay, operations, gas plant, geothermal power plant, okay, manufacture of rubber, textiles, okay. What else? Fertilizers industry, metallurgical industry. These are all under with the general industry. Okay, so the OSHA standard that will be used, we are referring to, is specifically 29 Code of Federal Regulation 1910, and the number after that will vary with. Okay, for example, confined space, that is 29 CFR 1910.146, because also the other standard for the construction industry is special. They are 29 CFR 1926. Okay, 1926, blah, 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 point something. It depends on the topics. Since I am working in general industry, I'm referring to 1910. Okay, but if it is a construction industry, you're referring to 1906. Okay, go over in the OSHA website and you can understand, because in the general requirements, you can understand very well there why we don't that kind of requirements or legislations. And there's talking also with a penalty with a particular employer, and talking also about the employees' rights towards occupational safety and health. Okay, it's being discussed there thoroughly and very detailed. Okay, you can go there, because what I've mentioned now, what I've discussed now, are only a part for that OSHA regulations, with a combination and compilation of some basic knowledge of my previous trainings in OSHA, OSHA lead auditor training, in ISO 9001 training, in ISO 14001 training, in OSHA's 18001 2007 training. So that's only a combination and compilation of my learning. Okay, but most of the standards referring to in the OSHA. Okay, like the specific hazards, especially the mandatory PPE and the special PPE to be used in occupational safety and health if you are working in different general industries or the construction industries. Okay? Two types lang siya, general industry and construction industries. Actually, there are a lot also that, but the shipyard industries, the maritime industries, I think fall on the other category also. Okay? Like that. So all you have to do is to himay-may the rules and regulations, because there are a lot of applicabilities. The implementation varies on the applicabilities of the rules and regulations specific to that particular subject. Okay? Like that. Since our subject today is confined space entry, that is 146. 29 CFR 1910.146, general industry. Okay? Like that's very clear. Like that. Okay? Thank you so much for listening again. Bye-bye and God bless. Ang tagal kong matapos. Oh my gosh, I'm talking very fast. Thank you so much. God bless everybody and bye-bye. Have a nice day. Stay at home. Okay. My gosh.